I would like to talk about a subject that I believe a lot of people will think the subject's not meant for them, especially youngsters, but if you listen to the whole speech, you'll see it's meant for everybody. And the subject is called midlife crisis. Midlife crisis is something that every person that reaches above age of 40 is going through. It's just a factor of life. I remember when I was young and I heard about midlife crisis, I said, I'm never going to have midlife crisis because my whole life is a crisis. So what's the difference what crisis it will be? And then I had other reasons why I thought that I'm not going to have midlife crisis, and then I found myself in midlife crisis. I know I look very young, but I'm older than you think I am. And midlife crisis hit me. And actually right now I'm in this stage of midlife crisis, but the question is not about whether you have the crisis or not. The question is if you know how to deal with it. Now, to sum up life, basically life has 5 stages. There's a childhood, teenager, young adult, youngster, and then midlife, and then old. Now, a child is a child exploring, everything is new to them, and they're learning life. And then a person goes into teenage years, and a teenager, that years of a person becomes like a different species. It's like you're a different creature. Getting out of childhood, going into adulthood, it's a transition. So those few years are like you're like a creature on your own. And then a person, when you go out of the teenage years, the person becomes a young adult, youngsters. And the young life of a person, people have goals and dreams, and people have the capability of achieving a lot of the dreams and a lot of their goals because you're young. And young people, let's say, they could stay up very late at night, sleep very few hours, and then go to work the next day. And so on and so on. They could do a lot of things, as we say, abusing their body and stuff like that, and their body could handle it. Young people have strength to do a lot of things. And then it comes to a point where a person is no longer young, and a person realizes, I am no longer young. And that's the point where the person transitions from youngster into midlife, because you're not old in midlife, you're just not young. And that causes a person confusion. When a person realizes, I'm no longer young, the person gets confused. So there are a lot of people, and the Gentile world, you could often see a person suddenly driving a 2-door Honda Accord, for instance. Like a 2-door Honda Accord is a very controversial vehicle, because a Honda Accord is a mid-size car, full-size car, and if you make it 2-door, it just becomes uncomfortable. But if it has the same engine, what's the whole point of having the 2-door? But when a person is trying to show off and is trying to pretend that they're still young, then a person needs to do something crazy to try to convince themselves, I'm young. But they can't. So the person would really want to buy an expensive sports car, but they can't afford it. So therefore they buy, let's say, a 2-door Honda Accord or any other similar controversial vehicle that it's not here, not there. Now, part of the reason why a person gets into midlife crisis and why the crisis has such an effect on a person comes because people have dreams and goals when they're young, and they don't reach that dream and goal. A lot of people had a dream that they're going to become rich. Now, when you're young, you have the capability of trying out different things, and you get older, you start realizing, oh, I can't anymore. Part of what makes a person realize that I'm no longer young is that they see that they don't have the strength They can't be up so many nights and then, just get up in the morning and work and stuff like that. And a lot of people feel like, okay, that means I'm never going to become rich. And then a lot of people thought that they're going to marry this dream girl that they had in their minds, and then they realized they didn't end up marrying the dream girl, and some of them didn't even get married at all. So all that stuff makes the person go crazy. So the person has confusion, plus he has, as we call in Hebrew, yish. They kind of feel like giving up because their life didn't turn out to be the way they wanted. So this makes a person, let's say, go buy a Honda Accord, a two-door Honda Accord, or any other crazy car. Now, by us Jews, we don't necessarily see this the two-door Honda Accord, but people will drive other kind of crazy cars because they get into this midlife crisis. And then people will sometimes mess up the whole marriage because of midlife crisis. A lot of times people worked very hard to get their marriage in a good direction, and the marriage worked for a nice couple of years and things were going good and sometimes even amazing. And then it comes to a point where the person goes into midlife crisis and they will just literally go and mess up the whole marriage, sometimes to the point of divorce, because of midlife crisis. And the reason why people do this kind of crazy things when they go into midlife crisis, the main reason, the first reason, is because people don't want to accept the fact. A person, in order to make their lives good, has to know you're not the one who makes your circumstances in life. You're the ones who decide how I'm going to respond to every circumstance. So when a person reaches midlife, the person goes into a confusion. It's something that just happens. The question is whether you accept it or not. If you accept that right now I'm in this stage of confusion, and it's not just confusion, right now I realize that all my dreams and goals that I had when I was young is not going to become true, or at least part of it cannot become true, or this is my reality. And if this is my reality, I'm going to accept it. 3/4 of the pain goes away. And right now you could figure out a way of how to make yourself happy the way it is. Because that's in general life. Before even you reach midlife crisis, a person finds himself in different circumstances in life, different situations. A lot of times it becomes bad, and a lot of times it becomes very bad. Now, what you could do is decide to yourself, I want to make the best out of it. Is the first step to make the best out of it is by accepting it. This is the fact, I'm accepting it. So now I'm here, this is my situation, and I'm going to make the best out of it. I'm going to find a way how to live in this situation and be happy in this situation. So when a person doesn't do that, that's when a person goes crazy. And when a person does all kinds of crazy things because they went into this midlife crisis, it becomes like a real sad reality, because the person, not only they don't help themselves, they literally destroy themselves. Because the reason why a person reacts so much comes because the person feels so much the pain, and every time he's doing any crazy thing in order to run away from the pain, that means the pain bothers him so much that he needs to find an escape from it. And every time you try to run away from your problems comes along with you. And the problems just become worse, and they become stronger. So you're not accomplishing anything, you're just making everything worse. And most of the time when people go through this crazy time of life, they could literally destroy their marriage, destroy friendships, destroy a lot of things in life. So not only they don't help themselves, they make themselves worse. But if a person accepts a fact, then the person is like, okay, right now I'm here. I'm no longer young. I'm not going to have all these goals. And by the way, in Lishon Kodesh, we have the word of yish, which means in English, giving up. That doesn't exist by us. It does not mean because let's say you didn't become rich, then now, let's say you're whatever age you reach midlife crisis. It could be some people even in the low 30s, and some people by 40, whatever the age is. There are a lot of people that became rich when they were 50. Actually, a huge percent of rich people became in their 40s. I think most, not sure. And being rich is not really the ultimate goal, but I'm just giving you an example. There are a lot of things that a person feels when they reach midlife. Oh, I'm not going to reach it. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't have yish. Everything is possible. So that's just a side note. But the fact is, a person has to learn in general life to accept facts. You're not the one who is creating and making your circumstances in life. You're the one who can make the choice of how to respond to every circumstance. And by accepting every fact, and then once you accept it, that's when you have the capability of telling yourself, I'm going to make the best out of it. That's when you can make the best out of in every situation in life. And then there's even a stronger, more meaningful thing about midlife crisis, and that is called spirituality. Because the question is, why did Hashem make people should become old? Why couldn't a person be born and stay young, and then just one day you die? Why does a person have to become old? Wouldn't it be better if we all stay young? The answer is, it's a chesed, it's a charity from Hashem that we don't stay young. Maybe getting old and falling apart, that is okay, but that's a whole subject for itself. But the fact that a person doesn't stay young is literally a chesed from Hashem. Because when a person is young and the person has capabilities of doing whatever they think they want to do, and they have the strength, the koiches to do it, then people completely forget why they're here on this world. And they end up following their Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and they go off in the wrong direction. Now imagine if a person would have stayed young until they die. A person could have literally lived 100 years and never even think about the fact that they have to do tshuva. Never even think about the fact that they're here for a purpose. So Hashem gives problems to people, and one of the things that Hashem did, that He made a person become older. He made a person lose his youth. So when you're young, you have to be young because you have to have the startup in life. You have to have a startup to be able to start a family and all, everything you need to do in life. And you need to have the challenge to think that there's something good under this world, to give you the nisoyan, the challenge, whether to go in the right pathway and the wrong pathway. But then Hashem makes you lose your youth years, and you're no longer young. You're not old yet, but you're no longer young, to wake you up that you're here for a purpose. So there are a lot of people that they get to a midlife crisis and they start realizing, I'm not going to stay here forever. And they also realize, I can no longer do things that I did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And they start waking up, I'm here for a purpose. And therefore, I should start focusing on my purpose and what I'm doing unto this world. And the person that wakes up from midlife, what means a midlife crisis woke him up, then the midlife crisis did exactly what it's supposed to do. And that person the midlife crisis becomes like a heaven to him. It becomes paradise. Because a lot of times people drift off very far, and the midlife crisis woke them up and took them back into the right direction. And when a person lives with spirituality, such a person is really happy. Life doesn't require much, and you're happy because you live with Hashem. And it's not only that. When a person gets older and a person lives with spirituality, the older you get, the more happy you become. Because when you're young, you couldn't accomplish as much as you accomplished during all these years. So the older you become, the closer you become to Hashem. So when a person lives with spirituality, the more years you live with spirituality, the more closer you become to Hashem. The more you feel accomplished in life. So the happier you become. So midlife is actually a good thing for the person, because it wakes up the person. It gives a push for the person. Even though, let's say you live spirituality, maybe I should live more with spirituality. Maybe I should more rethink my life and focus more on becoming close to Hashem, because right now I'm seeing that the whole world is nothing more than a lie. So the reason why I said in the beginning that this speech is made for youngsters is for this factor, because the reason why people have the crisis as the crisis have the power over them comes because they didn't learn, they didn't train themselves into accepting facts. They didn't train themselves to accept facts, therefore when they get into midlife crisis, they don't want to accept the fact. And they just making everything worse by that. Because that's what the person did before that as well. Every time they've been into a difficult situation and the person doesn't accept the fact, and you're trying to run away from the fact, then you're just making the problem 10 times worse. So it's a good idea that a person should learn when they're young to accept facts. In every circumstance of life, in every situation, this is my reality, I'm going to make the best out of it. And that person, when they reach midlife and they go into this stage of confusion, it doesn't become a whole crisis. It goes by smoothly. And then another thing is about spirituality. I know if you're young, sometimes a lot of people think that you're going to stay young forever and you're going to live forever and you could just do whatever you want. And so it's a good idea for a person to realize, no, you're here for a purpose, and the purpose is to serve Hashem. And not only that, serving Hashem and living with Hashem is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And if you think it's a bad thing, that means you have very wrong the whole spirituality. I know some people think that being religious and being frum is some spooky thing or a very horrible life. And those people don't really know what spirituality is. But being close to Hashem is the biggest gift a person can have. So therefore, it's ideal that when you're young, to start in your young years to connect with spirituality and to connect to Hashem and to glorify your life. And you can do it no matter how your life is. And if a person lives with spirituality in the young years, when they get to midlife, then they do have the confusion, the same as everybody else. But they feel uplifted because now they see, oh look, my young years I spent to connect to Hashem, and now I feel even closer to Hashem. And if I am not so connected to Hashem, now I'm seeing that there's nothing in this world anymore because I'm no longer young. So there's nothing really in the world for me. So how about let's connect more to Hashem? I hope you all understand. Have a wonderful day.